Hey guys, how you going? Do another demonstration, tutorial on CodeIgniter, and this time it's going to be a registration form and a login form with all the database stuff in the background and all the form validation and everything. So it's going to show a few different features of CodeIgniter. What you got in front of you at the moment is my structure for my project. It's effectively a clean install of CodeIgniter, except that I have renamed my controller to user, and I've created a view called view register. So this is the one that we'll be using, and it's basically just a view register is basically an HTML page. It's a shell at the moment with nothing much in it. And we're gonna put stuff into that. So just a couple of things I've done with the controller, the user controller here. I have assigned base URL to my view data, which I'm going to send through to my view, and I'm using this function called base URL. That function's a function within the URL helper, and I've auto-loaded that. So what that means is what you can do is in the config here under auto-load, I've actually you can actually specify libraries that you'll auto-load. You don't have to manually load them every time you want to use some functions within them. What I've done is I've auto-loaded the URL helper and the form helper. Okay, because we're going to use a form. We're going to use the form helper to create our forms, and we're also going to use the URL helper for things like base URL. So that's the only changes effectively that I've done from a clean install, if you want to follow along at home. Obviously I've changed my route, my default controller here, I've changed it to user, so that when I go to my base URL, it's going to automatically shoot off into the user controller. Okay, and if I don't specify a function in my URL, it's going to use the index function, and this index function is just going to push the people at the moment, just for the purposes of this demonstration, tutorial, tutorial is I am pushing them straight to the register function. Okay, and the register function is showing the register view. So if we put all that together and go to our base URL tutorial, we get this user registration, which is empty at the moment, so we're going to populate it. So what I'm going to do to speed things up, and you might have just seen it, I've prepared something earlier, but what I'm going to do to speed it up is show you the process for a couple of fields, and then I'll bring in the stuff I've prepared earlier so we can get this done a lot sooner. So I'm going to start with populating the form, so creating the form. So how we do that is because we're using the form helper, we start by creating a PHP section here, and we're going to open the form. And opening the form is where we specify basically what the form action is. So when they click submit on the form, what function, controller, etc., we're going to send that request. So we open the form with echo form open. And we're going to use that base URL that I sent through in the view data. So the base URL, and we're going to use the user controller, and we're going to send them back to the same function, the register function, the same one that called us, right? That way we can validate, and then we can decide what we want to do from there. Okay, so that opens the form, and then at the end we'll be closing the form. So right down here somewhere we'll put another one which will be closing the form. So echo form close. Pretty simple. Okay. Right. So in between here we're going to define all our fields. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to define one field, and then we'll put the form up and show you how it works. So this is I'm going to create a bunch of property arrays for each of our fields, and then we're going to use the form helper to call the array, which will automatically create the field, and you'll see what I mean as we go along. So username equals array, okay, and the array is going to be things like the field name, okay, which we're going to call for username, we'll call it username. Actually, we'll call it register username. Okay, then we're going to do ID, in case we want an ID for it, for JavaScript purposes or whatever else, and that's going to be the same name. And we're going to set the value when the form loads, when the input is first created, which will be empty for now. But later on with the form validation, we'll set that to whatever was submitted, so that if there's a validation problem, they don't have to retype the stuff. But I'll show you that later. So that's one field. We're going to create one of these for each of the fields. So we've got username, name, password, password confirmation, email address, that sort of thing. But for the purposes of speeding this along, I'm just going to show you one, and then you can do the rest, and I'll show you what it looks like using my prepared earlier thing. So, okay, so that's the one field, and now we're gonna output that into our page. I use unordered lists for my forms, unordered list and a list item, and then in the list item will be the label, and the label in this case will be username, and then I create a div for my field, and here I'm going to echo, and you just do echo form input, and the array that we chose up here, so this username. Okay, so that, and then we'll just close my list item, and we're gonna put in all our other list items in here, which will be all our other fields, which I'll show you with the prepared earlier one I've got. But just to close it off, let's put our submit button. So we're going to create another list item for that, and another div to contain the submit, and we're going to echo form submit, and then you do the same thing, and I could create a similar submit button using this format, but I won't bother because I'm just going to give it a name. So name, and it's going to be, say, register, and then give it a name, which a label, which will be register, or a value. So that's going to show the word register on the button, and it's the register button. That's the name of it. And close the div, close the list item, and we're going to close our UL, and that should be a single field form with a submit button which says register, which when submitted will go to user/register, which will be this one here again, which will just show it again. So we won't notice anything when we hit it. So let's go and have a look at it now. Hit refresh. Okay, and there we have it. So there's our list item for username with the thing. We can enter some value and hit register, and it'll come back and empty it out. Obviously, notice that that's changed, but we can keep doing it, and it's just going to keep showing the view, and it's going to be resetting the value every time, because by default I set my set value here to an empty string. So okay, so I've got 1 minute left, which is good. So what we'll do in the next tutorial, the next part of this tutorial, is I'll show you all the fields. But if I can quickly do it before I run out of time, I've got 50 seconds or something. I'm just going to tidy up my list item there and get rid of the list style, and I'll set that to none. Okay, and so when I refresh now, we're not going to have the little dots there, and it'll look a lot nicer later on. Okay, so stay tuned for the next tutorial in this series, and we'll complete our registration form, and we'll move on to the database stuff and do some more stuff on validation as well. Catch you soon. Bye.